I always thought that betrayal was something that happened somewhere out there to someone else. In other people's stories, in movies, in TV series that you flip through without emotion, until one morning you wake up and realize that she no longer lives with you, but next to you. It all started out ordinary. She, Olivia, got up earlier than usual. The coffee was already on the stove, the bread was browning in the toaster, and I, as usual, didn't have time to shower before work. We've been living together for 5 years, without children, without any special plans, but with a certain sense of stability. We have our own ritual: Sunday coffee, laughing at stupid TV series, arguing about where to go on vacation. She didn't smile that morning. Her movements were precise, measured. I thought she just hadn't had enough sleep. When I asked if she was okay, she answered with a short, "Yes," without intonation. I didn't pay attention then. People get tired, that's normal. But then little things started to appear. The phone she started keeping on silent. A new password I didn't know. A strange habit of going out to the yard for a smoke break, even though she never smoked. I noticed how she read the messages and quickly turned off the screen. How she averted her eyes when I asked who wrote. And every time something inside me twitched. But I pushed these thoughts away because I didn't want to become that man who rummages through other people's phones. The first signal was on Monday. I came home from work early. We were let out because of a breakdown on the line. She should have been home. I went into the apartment. It was quiet. Only the open window and the smell of perfume, not hers. On the table, 2 cups. One empty, the other with lipstick in a color she didn't use. I stood there, staring at the print. A silly detail, but it was the one that stuck in my memory. The shade wasn't hers. The style wasn't hers. The smell in the air wasn't hers. And that was when I first felt something break. I didn't call. I just sat on the couch and waited. An hour later, she came in, smiling with a bag of groceries. "Oh, are you home yet?" she said. "Yes." I pointed to the cups. "Did we have guests?" She stumbled for a second, but then answered calmly, "No, a friend came over, Emma. She brought coffee. We talked for a bit." I nodded. But from that moment on, something changed in me. The next few days, I lived as if under a microscope. I listened to every sound, caught her glances. She seemed to have become different. She smiled more often, but not at me. Her eyes shone with some new brilliance that I hadn't seen for a long time. One evening, when she went to Emma's, I decided to check. No, not the phone. Just our family calendar on the laptop. There, under the appointments section, was a note saying, "Counselor appointment." No name, no explanation. I could have ignored it. But my intuition was already screaming. I checked my route history. It had turned off geolocation. It was no longer a coincidence. 2 days later, she was going to her friend's again. I asked if I could give her a ride, but she refused. "No, I'm going to the movies with Emma later." I nodded. But when the door closed behind her, I got in the car. She left the house and headed not to the subway, but to another street. 15 minutes later, she stopped at a coffee shop. A man was already standing next to her. Tall, about 35, well-dressed. He hugged her, not as an acquaintance, as the woman he had been waiting for. I was standing in the car, my hands gripping the steering wheel until my bones were white. She was laughing. She looked happy. Happier than she had ever been with me. I didn't come out. I didn't make a scene. I just watched while they sat down at the table. She put her hand on his shoulder. He said something to her, and she leaned closer. I turned the key in the ignition, started the car, and drove away. I don't remember how I got home. There was only one thing on my mind. Why? When she returned, I was already sitting in the dark. "How was the movie?" I asked. "Sad," she replied. "With Emma?" "Yes, with who else?" I nodded. I didn't say what I saw. Not because I was afraid, but because I wanted to understand why she was lying so calmly. I lay awake that night. Her breath next to me felt foreign. I counted the seconds between breaths, imagining her looking at him. The next morning I got up early and went to work without breakfast. There was only cold silence in my head. A week later I knew his name. She said it herself, not realizing she had blurted it out. "Jason said this model was better," she said when we were buying a new coffee maker. I didn't ask who Jason was. I just remembered. I found his profile. Architect, married, 2 children, perfect life in photos. And in every post, a comment from her. I felt anger and pain mixing inside me, creating a strange indifference. I didn't want to expose her right away. I wanted to understand how deep it all went. So I became an actor in my own home. I smiled, I made dinner, I asked about her day. And inside everything was cracking. She was becoming more and more distant. I could see it in her eyes, in the way she stopped touching me, in the way she answered briefly, as if doing her duty. One night I found a photo on her laptop of her and Jason. Not a selfie. Someone had taken it from afar. They were standing by the river laughing, him holding her hand. I could have deleted it, but I kept it, because I wanted her to know what I knew. And that evening I simply asked, "Are you happy?" She was surprised. "Why do you ask?" "Just, I guess so." "Okay then." I got up and went to the bedroom. She didn't follow me. A few days later, she spoke up. "We need to talk." "Finally," I said. She sat down across from me, silent for a long time. "Something has changed between us." "It has," I agreed. "I don't know what to do about it." "It depends on what you want." She sighed. "I didn't want to lie to you. I wasn't looking for it. It just happened." "Yes, Jason. It's convenient when everything just happens, isn't it?" She looked down. "I didn't want you to find out like that." I wanted to laugh, but I couldn't. I felt empty inside. "Do you love him?" I asked. She was silent. That silence was an answer. That evening I packed my things and went to my brother's. There was no fighting, no shouting. It all ended calmly, coldly, like a stopped engine. Later, a few days later, I received a letter. From her. "I don't know if this is love, but when I'm next to him, I feel alive. Forgive me, if you can." I reread it and laughed, bitterly but sincerely, because I understood. She didn't betray me by accident. She simply went to where she felt like herself again. After her letter, I didn't go home. I stayed with my brother in his old apartment with torn wallpaper, the smell of coffee, and a dog that was constantly shedding. There was no silence there, and that saved me. The first few weeks, I lived like an automaton. Work, home, sleep. In the evenings, I watched TV without sound, because any voice would remind me of her. I didn't analyze, I didn't scroll through the scenes. I just turned everything off inside. My brother tried to talk, but I brushed it off. "You're not the first," he said once. "Just keep going." I nodded, even though I didn't believe in going on, because when the person you entrusted your life to suddenly becomes a stranger, There's no going on. There's only emptiness. 2 months passed. I even started to get used to it. Everything at work was going as it should. Projects, deadlines, colleagues who didn't ask unnecessary questions. Life seemed to be getting back on track. And that's when everything turned upside down for the second time. It was a normal Monday morning. I came to the office, got a coffee, and opened my mail. Among dozens of work emails, there was one private one, from an unknown recipient. Subject: you should know. I almost deleted it, but something made me open it. Inside was just one sentence. Your wife didn't cheat on you. She lied, but for a different reason. And the attached file is a photo. The picture showed Olivia. She was standing next to Jason's car, but in the background was a police van and an FBI investigation area sign. My heart skipped a few beats and froze. I read the message again. No signature, no contact, just anonymous. I didn't know what to think. Was it someone's joke, or was it really something more? But the same feeling woke up in me as when I first noticed the lie. Intuition. I decided to check. That same day after work, I found Jason's number. Not directly, but through his company's website. I called him, introducing myself as a potential client. Mr. Gray? I heard a confident voice on the phone. Yes, I'm interested in your office downtown. Do you go there often? Not anymore, he said. The project has been frozen. We're working remotely now. His voice was calm, professional. I couldn't help but ask directly. Do you know Olivia Woods? A pause. Who are you? Her husband. He was silent for a few seconds, then said, She doesn't work with us anymore. Did she? Temporarily, on a government contract. I froze. Government. She's an architect, not an agent. Yes, but the project was related to the renovation of a building we were handing over to the federal government. She had access to documents that... He paused. You know what? We shouldn't talk about this on the phone. And hung up. That evening, I couldn't sit still. I went through all her old papers that were left in my car after the move. Among them was an old badge that said, Contractor, FWS Group. I hadn't paid attention to it before. I found the website of this company, a small firm that deals with infrastructure projects, but at the bottom in small print, Partner of Federal Services. It turns out she wasn't just going to a counselor meeting. She was hiding something, but not her lover. The next morning I decided to go to her, not because I wanted to get it back, but because I needed to know. It wasn't her who opened the door. Another woman, about 40. Are you looking for Olivia? She asked. Yes. She left. Where? She didn't say. She just asked me to pass on the message if anyone asked. Don't look for me. I went outside, my head spinning. The cold air cut into my lungs. Everything seemed unreal. A few days later, another letter arrived. This time by mail, not email. No return address. Inside was a sheet of paper and a flash drive. On the sheet were just a few words. If you want to know the truth, look. There was a video on the flash drive, a surveillance camera. She, Olivia, was standing in the same bar where I had seen her with Jason. But they weren't flirting in the footage. She was handing him an envelope. He signed, and within seconds, 2 men in plain clothes entered the bar. One showed his ID. Jason was led away. She was left alone, pale, then quickly left. I rewound the video dozens of times. There was nothing intimate about it. She was really conveying something. And then everything fell into place. I remembered her nervousness, her disappearance, her lies about her friend. She wasn't cheating. She was covering for someone, or carrying out someone's errand. Maybe this Jason wasn't a lover, but a target. But then why the letter, "I feel alive" next to him? Was it part of the game? A cover-up? I didn't know who to believe. Her, the letters, myself. I turned to a journalist friend of mine. We had worked together on technical projects before, and he had connections in the security department. "Check my name," I asked. "Jason Gray?" He nodded. I heard. His company was shut down.
There's a case of embezzlement of federal funds, but he himself hasn't been found. They didn't find him? I felt a chill run down my spine. He disappeared during the investigation. Then I remembered the photo of the FBI van. She? Jason? The van? And she? I asked. There's no Olivia Woods in the database, maybe an alias. The next few days turned into a search. I called all her acquaintances, colleagues, even former neighbors. Most of them said the same thing. She disappeared suddenly. She didn't explain anything. I returned home, sat down at the table, and began writing down everything I knew. Every little thing, dates, places, names. I wanted to put together a picture, but the further I went, the more it fell apart. And then something strange happened. At night, around 3 o'clock, someone rang my brother's doorbell. I went downstairs, thinking it was a mistake. There was an envelope on the doorstep. Inside was a photograph. Me and her. We are standing outside our old house. Caption: "Do you still think you know me?" From that moment on, I realized that this wasn't just a story about betrayal. It was something more. I started to notice that I was being followed. A car that had been parked outside the office for 2 days in a row. People who turned away when I looked at them. One evening, the same journalist called me. "Listen, forget all this. Her name is really in the database, but not among the suspects, among the undercover witnesses. If you dig up more, you'll come under attack." I sat in the dark, listening to the refrigerator hum, and thought, who did I love then? The woman who betrayed me? Or the woman who saved someone but had to pretend to betray her? And perhaps both at the same time. That night, I wrote her a letter. "I don't know who you really were, but if this was your way of protecting someone, I hope it was worth it. If not, you just destroyed what was real." No answer came, and a week later, a new letter with a short video. She, somewhere in the hotel, looks into the camera. I couldn't tell the truth. You wouldn't understand. But everything I did wasn't against you. Take care of yourself. And that's it. The recording stopped. I don't know if she's alive. I don't know who's behind it all. But every night when I fall asleep, I see that photo with the caption, "Do you still think you know me?" Probably not. I never knew. And maybe that's the truth. It was the 3rd month without her. After the last video, I tried to let go, but I couldn't. A person who simply left doesn't leave such traces. She doesn't send videos, doesn't warn that everything was not against you. It only meant one thing. She was still somewhere nearby, and something wasn't over. I began to collect information, as one collects wreckage after an accident. Dates, names, addresses. What I had once ignored now made sense. In her old notebooks, I found a few lines written in someone else's handwriting. 7th and Lincoln, 7:45 p.m. Don't be late. Back entrance. I didn't know what it was. Meeting coordinates? Password? But it was enough to get me back to where it all began. That evening, I drove to the corner of 7th and Lincoln. It was an industrial area. Warehouses, auto repair shops, old factories. A sign glowed under one of the windows. Reed Storage. I walked around the building, and sure enough, there was a black door with no handle. On the wall next to it was a bell button. I pressed the button. A few seconds later, a man in a gray jacket opened the door. "You?" He looked at me intently, as if he recognized me. "Maybe," I replied. "I'm looking for Olivia Woods." He was silent for a few seconds, then said briefly, "Come in." Inside it smelled of dust and grease. In the center stood a table, on which were several folders with documents. "She said you could come?" he said, without looking up. She said, "When?" "A month and a half ago, before she left." I felt something tighten in my chest. "Where is she?" "I can't say. But if she's still alive, it's for a reason." He handed me one of the folders. "This is what she left for, and what could have gotten her removed." I opened the folder. Inside were reports, printouts, photos of buildings. Some were marked with a red marker. At the top it said, "FWS Confidential, Internal Audit Leak." Is that her job? Partly. She came across documents about bid rigging. Someone was using shell companies to launder money. Jason was just a link. I flipped through the pages. Familiar dates, familiar names. Even my company was among the contractors. Wait, I stopped. "My name is here." "That's why she kept quiet," the man said. "She knew that if anyone found out you were connected, they would just remove you as a witness." I felt the ground slip from under my feet. "You mean I'm part of this story?" "I am." When I went outside, the city seemed different. I was driving home, but everything was mixed up in my head, her hugs, her lies, her escape. Did she betray me to save me, or did she save me by betraying me? The next day I got a call. The number was unknown. "You took the documents," the voice said. "Now they want you." "Who is they?" "The same ones she was hunting." "The line is broken." I looked out the window and saw a black car parked in the parking lot. For the third day in a row, I went to the police. I told them everything except that I had the documents. They wrote down a statement, but I saw it, and they didn't believe it. "Maybe you think so," the officer said. "If someone is really following us, we'll check it out." He wrote down my name and number. As I was leaving, I noticed he had put the paper in a different folder, not the one with the official letters. Then I realized I won't achieve anything through official means. At home, I opened the folder again. Among the dozens of pages, one stood out, a printout of an email. Sender, Olivia. Woods FW's Contract Gov. Recipient, M. Hale E. Internal Audit.us. Subject, urgent, data breach inside FWS. Date, a week before she disappeared. There was a file attached there, a list of companies, and one of them was Halpern Systems. It was the company with which I had just signed a contract for the supply of materials. Then I understood why they were following me. They knew I had seen the documents. I spent the next few days in a fog. Every sound seemed suspicious. One day, returning home, I noticed scratches on the lock, as if someone had tried to open the door. Nothing was missing, but someone was inside. I set up a surveillance camera. The next morning, I watched the recording. The silhouette of a woman was in the frame. Short hair, dark jacket. She leaned over the table, left something behind, and left. There was an envelope on the table. Inside was a flash drive. On it was audio, her voice. "If you're listening to this, they're already here. Don't go to the police. Don't trust anyone who says they'll help. I found something I shouldn't have seen. If you can, destroy these documents and forget about me." But I couldn't. Now I wasn't looking for her anymore. I was looking for answers. I realized that this wasn't just a betrayal or a job. It was an operation. She was a witness in a case involving government money. She disappeared to survive. And I only stayed alive because I was her cover. All those meetings, friends, movies were coded outings. Jason is an undercover agent who botched a mission. Her letters are not apologies, but coded messages. I began to decipher them again. The phrase, "I feel alive next to him," in the first letter, now sounded different. Alive meant safe. Next to him perhaps meant under his protection. Now every word was part of the code. I tried to find the man who gave me the folder. But the Reed storage warehouse was already empty. Everything, documents, a table, even dust.
Only one inscription remained on the wall, in black marker. "There is a way out, but not for everyone." That evening I received an SMS from an unknown number. "You are on the right path, but time is running out." And then I realized, either I finish what she started, or I will be removed, just like her. I turned to the journalist again. "I need to publish this," I said, throwing the folder on the table. He opened the documents, looked through them, and just whistled softly. "Do you understand that if this works out, you won't just be fired?" "I understand." "And still, yes, because otherwise I'll be living a lie, just like her." He agreed, but he asked for 3 days to check everything. 2 days later, his car exploded near the editorial office. I realized then, now I'm in a game I can't get out of. The next morning, I received an email. No text, just a photo. Me standing outside the office with a red circle around my head. I gathered everything, documents, flash drives, notes, and put them in a safe deposit box at a bank under a different name. After that, I left the city. I had no plan. Just a feeling that she was still alive somewhere. In the evening, when I got into the car, the phone rang again. The same unknown number. "You finally understand," said a female voice. "Not all lies are evil." "Is that you?" I asked. "Yes, but don't look for me. Now they're watching you too." "Who are they?" "Those who don't need the truth." "Why did you come back then?" I asked. "Why take the risk?" "Because there are things that need to be finished. And you are a part of it, now." Then the connection was lost. I sat in the car, listening to the sound of the engine, and realized that there was no choice now. She had drawn me into a world where lies became salvation and the truth a death sentence. And if I once thought that the worst thing was betrayal, now I know. The worst thing is when you are made the hero of a story in which you didn't even want to be an extra. After her call, I stopped running. I did what I had been afraid of since day one. I spread out a map of the city in front of me and marked all the points from the documents on it. Warehouses, offices, contractors, addresses of shadow legal entities. One name always repeated in the center: Halpern Systems, a conduit company through which funds were funneled. It appeared now in electricity, now in concrete, now in sustainability consulting, where no normal engineer would approve the estimate. On the other side of the card, I wrote down the surnames. The ones that Olivia marked in the reports with the letters K, S, H. Next to them, I put the real names, according to the data from the registers, tenders, tax records. Most often, the initiative came from people from the district, small officials who signed the acts, and one senior curator on the federal line, Harold Sims. Sims surfaced around the same time Jason Gray disappeared. He was coordinating the transfer of several buildings from the city to the agency. On one of them, there was a note in the margins of the documents in Olivia's hand. Sims only responds to those who put a chessboard on the table. Conversation is when he sees that you are thinking in moves. I picked up the phone and dialed a number from the contractor's database, the Infrastructure Committee's reception desk. "Good afternoon, Mr. Sims," I said, as if we knew each other. "I'm interested in the format of cooperation for a consortium." "A consortium?" The voice was even, certain. "Start with the tender documentation." "I started," I replied. "But we're not discussing documentation. We're discussing sustainability." The pause lasted a second, just long enough to make it clear that the person on the line was weighing in. "Who gave me my number?" "I was told you play chess. I'll come with the board." He laughed quietly, without joy. "The board is for those who like long games. For me, it's a clock. Tomorrow, 7 p.m.
Dakota Coffee House, back table. "And don't take pocket queens. I'll beat you on the hands." I hung up the phone and sat for a long time staring at the ceiling. I didn't need chess. I needed the truth, but it wasn't given away for free here. The Dakota Coffee Shop was in the old quarter. Bookshelves, dim lighting. Sims arrived without security, or rather he was invisible. Shirt without a tie, a watch that you remember. He looked at my hands, at my bag, at my gaze, like a blueprint being checked for defects. "Did you come alone?" "Yes," I answered. "With a board?" I put the elaborate chessboard on the table. He didn't smile. "You're not here for games. You're here for answers," he said, and pushed the queen aside. "Ask questions. Where is Olivia Woods? We don't discuss witnesses. And Jason Gray? He disappeared. That's what happens when people get their roles mixed up. You worked on the same line. I didn't ask," I stated. "She was collecting material on you." "On me?" He barely raised an eyebrow. "I'm only interested in numbers. Human stories are for the newspapers." "Then the numbers," I said, placing copies of Halpern Systems invoices on the table. "Empty companies signed by your supervisors. The actual work was done by others. The money was wasted. You ran the scheme." He didn't touch the papers. "You're brave, but courage without protection is a gamble." "I have a safe," I replied. "If anything happens to me, the documents will go to the press and to the authorities." "Where?" He tilted his head. "To your journalist friend, a good guy. Too bad he loved his car." I was shaken. He spoke without bravado, flatly, like an engineer about effort and moments. "What do you want?" he asked. "To see her, and to hear what really happened." "She made a choice," he said. "You did too. Not all choices come to the same conclusion." "Did you kill Jason?" "I don't kill. I open and close the door. Who comes in is their will. Who goes out is their chance. Why didn't they remove me then?" I felt warmth in my fingers, but my voice held. "Because you are needed. Sometimes the best cover is real feelings. They are the least predictable for the camera. You are proof that she is human, and people need stories, not schemes." He stood up. "Your time is up. Don't make moves you can't justify. When you touch a piece, you are obligated to move." "Where is she?" I repeated. "In a place where those who don't know how to lose live," he said. "Look where your after began." And he left. Where your after began. My after began at my brother's. And before that, at a bar. Reed Storage. A room with shelves. And one more address in the notebook. Shelter 14, Northgate. Shelter 14 turned out to be an abandoned bomb shelter on the outskirts. Concrete, rust, collapsed stairs. Northgate, a northern grate with a chain. I arrived at dusk. In the air, the smell of wet earth and old metal. A lantern cut a corridor out of the darkness. On the walls, fluorescent arrows, still Soviet. Then, silence with an echo. Behind the third arch was a door, an iron lock on a magnetic lock. I touched it, and the lock clicked. Someone had turned it off in front of me. I entered. She stood in the center. Olivia was thinner than I remembered. Her hair was shorter, her eyes alert but alive. I wanted to rush to hug her, to say everything I had been holding back for months. Instead, I said the first thing that came to mind. "You're alive." "You're stubborn," she replied. "I asked you not to look." "I didn't look. I counted. And it all came together here." She looked at my hand. I hadn't noticed I was holding the flashlight like a weapon. "Put it down," she said. "There are no cameras here." I put the lantern on the box. "Tell the truth," I say. "All the way. No romance." She sighed and sat down on a metal beam. I stood opposite her. "It all started with the FWS audit," she said.
I was hired as a contractor to review the documents. I found inflated estimates, the same shell company with different top-level names. I went to Sims. "Jason." She closed her eyes for a moment. "He came in as a renovation supervisor, introduced himself as an architect. He was an operative. We worked together to gather evidence." "And you didn't say a word to me?" "I signed a non-disclosure agreement. And also, I was afraid. Not for myself. For you. The scheme involved the company you worked with. At that moment, it seemed to me that they could get to me through you. I moved away so that you wouldn't be drawn into my shadow." "You were pulling away," I repeated, "and it felt like you betrayed me." "It's the worst kind of cover-up." She smiled without laughing. "But sometimes a lie is the only wall that doesn't get broken first." "Jason disappeared," I said. "Did they take him?" "He went out of character. He wanted to speed things up. He went straight to the person in the city council. And he disappeared. After that, I was given new instructions. Not to contact official channels, to go to Reed Storage, to give some of the materials to a journalist if I had the chance. I did everything according to the notes until I realized the wrong hand was writing the notes. Sims? The scheme is bigger. Sims is a facade. Behind him is a consortium that keeps half the staff on contracts. They don't need heroes. They need silence. That's why your journalist... She didn't finish. "I met with Sims. He said he needed me as proof of your humanity." "Yes," she said quietly. "I refused the protection program. As long as you're around, they have leverage. I went to cut that leverage." "Why did you call me here?" I finally asked. She held out the flash drive. "Because from now on, it's either together or nothing. Here's the core. What Jason and I were collecting. Contracts, internal chat logs, correspondence from personal addresses, accountant's notes. There's also something about Halpern, precise transfers to funds connected to people on the committee. And my testimony. If we open it, they'll remove us. If we don't open it, they'll remove us too. Just be quiet." We sat in silence. Somewhere above, the rain was pounding, water making its way through the concrete. "Is there a plan?" I asked. "There are two," she said. "The first is legal. We give the materials to an independent group that has an international mandate. They launch an investigation at a level that the locals won't be able to clean up.
The second is noise. We give everything to the press, to 3 major publications at the same time, plus activists, plus anonymous channels. Explosion. After the explosion, defense. And which one is real? None guarantees life, but the second one is faster. Have you tried legal yet? Yes. Through a clean lawyer. He disappeared within a week. Noise then, I said. They must lose control before they can quiet down. She nodded. There's only one condition, she added. I'll go public, not you. Why? Because these are my documents, my subscriptions, my story. You're the backup. If something happens to me, you'll bring it to the finale. No, I said. Together. Together means that if we get caught, there will be no one to finish us off. She stood up. Remember, you asked if I loved that man? Her voice did not tremble. I told the truth in silence, because I could not explain that he was not a person. This was the side I chose, the side where you have no place. I made a mistake. Now I am correcting it. Why do you believe me? I asked. Because you went through all the doors without breaking any. And you still ended up here. I opened my mouth to answer, but a sharp metallic sound cut through the silence. Somewhere in the corridor, a lock clicked.
Someone entered through the south gate. Olivia grabbed the flashlight, turned it off, and whispered quietly, "Plan noise now." She pulled a small router out of her backpack, plugged it into an old server socket on the wall, which turned out to still be live. "There's a backup channel here. Jason and I set it up. If he's still alive, he'll see the signal. If he's not, everyone who had access will." Footsteps were approaching. 2. Heavy, confident. She handed me the phone with the cloud storage window open. "The upload will take 500 mirrors. 3 minutes and we won't be shut down. Hold the line if it goes down." Shadows crossed the far opening. I could see only outlines. Black jackets, silencers in their hands. "They didn't come to talk," I whispered. "They never talk until published," she replied. I felt everything compress into one point. My free hand, the cold metal of the beam in my palm, the screen with the progress bar, 37%. The first shot hit the concrete above us. Pebbles flew off the ceiling. Dust covered my face. "Lie down." She pulled me down, threw me behind the box and pressed mailing. 3 addresses of major publications, pre-created accounts, a script for sending to forums and to archive bots. 52%. The second shot deflected the flashlight. The darkness deepened, but I, as if for the first time, saw everything clearly. The rust pattern. The smile she couldn't hide. A moment that lasted longer than a lifetime. "Are you ready?" she whispered. "No," I replied. "But I've already started walking." 71%. One of the silhouettes moved forward. I grabbed the beam, turned from below, a blow to the knee. The other's cry was short and harsh. The second took aim. "Left!" Olivia threw the wrench. The metal hit the wall, distracted. I jerked the attacker aside. The shot went to the floor. Sparks. We fell, struggling. I could only hear my breathing and the grinding of my teeth. 89%. Just a little more. Her voice was everywhere now, in the noise, in the fingers, in the dryness in my mouth. I snatched the weapon from him, but the barrel went to the side. The other one got up and took a step and stopped. "It's done," Olivia said. 100%. The screen flashed. "Sending completed. Archives created. Caches updated." In the silence, the only sound was the sound of the water behind the wall. We stood in the darkness, like 2 people suddenly resigned to the fact that they had finally done the inevitable.
Now they'll know the truth is out, she said, and you can't erase anything. And we? And we'll either live to see the trial or become a footnote in an ethics textbook. From the far corridor, footsteps were heard again, this time quick, not cautious. We're leaving through the north gate, she said. Then, separately. The meeting, if there's anyone to meet, will be according to the rules you hate. Cipher, time, other people's keys. No, I took her hand. This time, together. Together we are one goal, she replied, and I don't want the explosion to take you away a second time. She pulled her hand away gently, as those who know how to disappear do. I'll go first. If I get through, you'll be gone in 2 minutes. If not, you'll go back to the safe and be louder than both of us. Olivia, you asked for the truth. Here it is. I'm not doing this for schemes, and I'm not doing it against you. I'm doing this because we shouldn't be taught to live a lie, even if it means sacrificing silence. She smiled, for the first time in months. You asked me if I loved anyone. She tilted her head slightly. I love a world where you're not afraid of the truth. She disappeared into the darkness of the hallway. I counted my heartbeats. 1, 2, 60, 120. Somewhere above, a siren wailed, not ours, but the city's. The phone vibrated. The news feed exploded with headlines. Leaked documents, federal funds, contract schemes, names. She was everywhere. Her handwriting in the PDF, her notes in the margins, her voice in the file attachments. And one picture of me, cropped without a face, as proof that the witnesses weren't ghosts. I stepped into the hallway. Ahead was a cold draft and a light that shouldn't have been there. On the left were footsteps. On the right were footsteps. And in the middle was a place for the choice we'd been putting off all this time. I exited through the north gate. The air hit my lungs like water. Blue lights flickered above the bunker. Police, ambulances, those who arrive when it's too late to put out the fire. The phone vibrated again. An unknown number. A short message with 3 words. Go. The Queen is sacrificed. I looked up at the dark sky and realized the game they imposed had reached its end game. But the board was now public. And that meant that for the first time in a long time, we had a chance. The world doesn't change overnight. When the truth breaks out, it's not like thunder. It's more like a hum that slowly passes through people. Some hear, some turn away. The first hours after the leak were chaos. News, screens, headlines, leaked documents, investigation into federal contracts. The committee refused to comment. The governor demanded a full audit. The press shouted about a corruption pyramid. Olivia's name didn't come immediately. At first she was called the source, then the woman who dared. Finally, the fugitive. Mine didn't appear at all, and that probably saved it. The following days, I lived in a fog. The police came twice to clarify the testimony. I spoke carefully, what was confirmed and nothing more. They had no evidence that I had been in Shelter 14. All her data, all her accounts, have been deleted. Only the articles that quoted her words. And a photo taken by one of the journalists, where she stands in profile, in the shadows. In that photo, she didn't look like a victim, nor did she look like a heroine. She just looked like someone who had finally stopped lying. A week later, a video appeared online. It was not from official sources. It was an amateur recording, as if someone had filmed it with an old camera in a dark room. Olivia, if you see this, she said, then I did what I had to do. I'm not looking for excuses. We lived in a system where silence was currency. I had no right to remain silent when I saw people building palaces out of other people's fear. She paused. I don't care what they call me. I just want you to know. The truth is not a weapon. It is light. It hurts, but it heals. The video cut off. The comments below it were like a battlefield. Half wrote heroine, the other half wrote traitor. And I thought, this is how it always is. People want the truth as long as it doesn't affect their gods. I moved out of town. A small house by the water, an old bicycle, minimal internet. Sometimes I get letters from journalists, from acquaintances, even from strangers. Some thank me, some curse me. I don't answer. One day, an envelope arrived without a stamp. Inside was an old chess piece, a queen, and underneath it was a piece of paper with handwriting that I would recognize even after death. You didn't win the game, you just didn't run away, and that's enough. No signature, but I knew who it was from. Sims disappeared from the public sphere. Officially, he was on sick leave. Unofficially, he was arrested for abuse of office, without bail. The consortium fell apart like a house of cards. Some of his people fled, others accidentally came under investigation in cases unrelated to the leak. The case was transferred to Washington. Olivia's name became a symbol. Anonymous groups created banners, articles, songs from her quotes. And for me, she remained simply a person I once loved, and perhaps still love. A year passes. Sometimes I catch myself looking at the door when the wind knocks, as if waiting for her to come in. Sometimes I think I see her face in the crowd, at the subway, at the market, on the bus. But every time, it's not her. Or maybe she's just doing it on purpose. So that I never know if she's nearby or somewhere beyond the border. One evening I was sitting on the shore. The sun was setting. The world was turning red, like the film in an old camera. And I suddenly remembered how we used to drink coffee in the morning, and she said, "You know, the worst thing is not betrayal. The worst thing is when one sees meaning and the other sees just routine." I didn't understand then, but now I do. She wasn't running away from me. She was running away from the lie we all agreed to live in. And maybe I betrayed her by not wanting to see her for so long. Sometimes I dream of our first days. The house, the smell of coffee, two voices laughing at little things. Then, shots from the basement, the sound of gunshots, and silence. And always the same thing, her phrase before she disappeared. I love a world where you are not afraid of the truth. I wake up and think, maybe this is what love is, not holding on but letting go when the truth is more important than us. Sometimes I think that it could have all been different, that if I had gotten out of the car at that coffee shop, everything would have stopped. But now I understand. We don't stop stories. We just either live in them or let them live us. And even though I'm alone, there's something real in this silence. No lies, no cover-ups, just the air that smells of rain and the echo of her voice somewhere in my memory. Maybe she's still there somewhere. Maybe she's gone. But I know for sure, thanks to her, I learned to look the truth straight in the eye. And when someone asks me why I'm still alone, I answer simply, because there are women who don't come back. They stay inside. Like the calm after the storm, like the light after the explosion. 2 years have passed. The silence is no longer deafening. It simply exists, as part of the house, as a background to the sound of the kettle, to the creaking of the door, to the breathing in sleep. I live in a small house by the water. I work remotely, fixing old computers, writing technical reports for companies that have no idea who I am. My world is now limited to a few simple things: coffee, a laptop, a dog from the shelter, and the morning light that filters through the curtains. When the wind from the river brings the smell of rain, I always remember her. Not as a heroine of the leak, not as a woman who betrayed me, and not even as a shadow from an old video. I remember her as she was before everything, simply alive. The news hasn't talked about the FWS case for a long time. The investigation is ongoing somewhere at the federal level. New names are emerging. Old ones are disappearing. People have forgotten how it all began. Now it's just another item in the corruption revelations reports. But I haven't forgotten. Because for me, this wasn't a story about politics. It was a story about two people who found themselves on opposite sides of the truth. A few months ago, I received a letter. No envelope, just a piece of paper folded in half. You were right. We can't change the system, but we can choose not to be part of it. If you're reading this, I'm alive. Sometimes I look at you from afar. Don't look for me. Don't forgive me. Just live. No address, no signature. But I recognized her handwriting, even slightly tilted forward, as if each letter was in a hurry to the next. I reread this letter dozens of times, and each time I felt less pain, less anger. All that remained was a quiet understanding. Some people come into our lives not to stay, but to show us who we really are. Now I understand that we both lived in fear back then. She, that I would be drawn into her truth. I, that her truth would destroy my peace. As a result, we lost each other, but found ourselves. I don't know where she is now. Maybe in another country, under a different name. Maybe still underground, in a vault where she keeps the light from those who fear it. Sometimes I think she's near me, when the smell of coffee and vanilla is in the air. I stopped looking for answers. I only have a few things left. The same chess piece, the queen, the letter, and an old flash drive that I didn't dare insert into any computer. It lies in a drawer, wrapped in paper. Maybe there's nothing there. Maybe it's everything. And I don't want to know, because for the first time in a long time, I don't need the truth to live. When the sun sets over the river, I sometimes say out loud, as if she can hear, "You know, you were right. The worst thing is not betrayal. The worst thing is to remain silent when you already know." And the wind seems to answer me with a slight movement of the water. Maybe it's just a coincidence, or maybe it's her voice. I don't know what's next. And for the first time, it doesn't scare me. Because if truth is light, then I've finally learned to live in it, even when it hurts. I sometimes think that she and I did not part. We simply dissolved in time, each in our own direction. She went into the world of truth. I remained in the world of silence. And only the silence between us became a bridge that we still sometimes cross. In dreams, in memories, in brief touches of memory. Last month, I happened to meet a man who worked in the same organization where she once worked. Gray-haired, calm, with the eyes of a man who had seen more than he wanted to. We were sitting in a coffee shop, and when I said her name, he fell silent for a second. "She did what most people wouldn't dare do," he said. "And she survived. But she had to change everything. Her name, her city, even her voice." "Is she happy?" I asked. He stared into his cup for a long time, then said, "She's calm, and that's better than happiness." After that, I didn't ask any more questions. Some answers need to be left unsaid, otherwise they lose their meaning. That night I lay awake for a long time. The rain was beating on the roof, and it seemed to me that it was the same sound that had been in that shelter when everything was being decided. I went outside. The air smelled of earth and leaves. I stood barefoot on the cold grass and found myself thinking that for the first time in many years, I didn't want to run away. I remembered every phrase she said. "I do this because I can't live a lie. I don't want you to be afraid of the truth. Memory is not life." I didn't understand then. I understand now. She didn't betray me. She just chose to be herself. And maybe that's the highest form of love, not sacrificing yourself even for the sake of those you love. A week later, the courier called me. "A package with no return address," he said. Inside was an old camera. Ours. The one we bought on a trip once, and which I thought had been thrown away long ago. There were a few frames on the film. We were on the beach, laughing, wet from the waves. I was holding her in my arms. She was covering her face from the sun. And another photo, a new one. She was standing at some train station. Her eyes were calm, adult, but the same. On the back it said, "Don't be afraid of the light. You know how to hold it." I sat for a long time, holding this film, and for the first time in a long time I cried. Not from pain, but from relief. Because I realized I no longer carry it as a burden. I carry it as a part of myself, as proof that even after darkness, it is possible to stay alive. Life has become calm. I don't look for adventures. I don't read the news. I write short notes about simple things, about the wind, about water, about silence. Sometimes people write in the comments that these texts are bright but sad. They don't know that this is just the story of a person who once lost everything and found himself for the first time. Once I met a girl on the street. She had the same eyes as hers, attentive, a little ironic. She smiled when I accidentally gave way, and I realized the world has not ended. It has simply become quieter. And now in this piece there is also a place for someone new. I don't know if she'll come back. Maybe not. But if one day I smell vanilla coffee again, I won't flinch. I'll just smile. Because this smell is no longer about betrayal. It's about life. About the fact that everything has passed, but it hasn't disappeared. We all leave shadows behind us. Her shadow is not black. It is bright, like a lamp burning at night when you are awake. Sometimes I catch that light on the wall, and it reminds me, you don't have to know how it will end to live right. Now I know that love is not measured by who stays with you. It is measured by what is left behind. And if you still remember how someone once said, "I love a world where you are not afraid of the truth," means that this world really exists. And maybe it is in it that we still meet, in every wave, in every word I write after it. There are mornings when I wake up before the sun. The water outside the window is as quiet as glass. The room smells of coffee. And for a few seconds it seems to me that she is in the kitchen, in a t-shirt, with her hair tied in a bun, looking for something in the refrigerator. I know it is an illusion, but I do not drive her away. Sometimes it is worth letting the past stand by your side to understand that it no longer hurts. I kept a few of her things. A scarf that smells of her perfume, a book in the margins of which she made short notes. "Don't forget. Check. Tell him later."
and an old flash drive. Yes, the same one that once changed everything.
For a long time, I didn't dare to insert it into the computer. But one evening I did. Inside, there was nothing that I expected. No documents, no diagrams, no correspondence. Only one file, a text file, without a name. I opened it. There were only 3 lines. If you're reading this, we survived. The world may not have changed, but it's fairer now. Don't look for me. Keep going. I reread these words hundreds of times, and I understood. She knew that one day I would not be able to stand it and open up. This is not about her. This is about me, about not remaining in the past. The world has indeed become a little different. Not better, not kinder, just a little more honest. The Halpern Systems case was brought to court. Some positions were removed, some were convicted, some were forgotten. Olivia's name surfaced in the press again, but this time with respect. Without gossip, without loud epithets, simply a woman who dared. And then I realized this is her victory, not in the courts, but in people. I started writing. Not about her, not about politics, but about ordinary things. About how the light falls from a different angle in December. How the smell of pine needles mixes with coffee. How you can hear your own thoughts in silence. People read and say, "Your texts are like a confession, but without regret." And I smile, because in each of them is a part of what she left in me. Sometimes when I walk through the city, I think I see her. In the crowd, in the reflection in the shop window, in the tram opposite. And every time I want to say, "I found your light," but I remain silent. Because if she is alive, she knows. And if not, then perhaps this silence is the continuation of our conversation. I no longer dream of that basement. I no longer dream of the shots. I no longer dream of the documents. Now I dream of other things. The beach where we were, the sun that doesn't burn, but simply warms. And she, in a light dress, says to me, "You're finally not running away." I wake up and I really don't run away. Because you can't run away from the truth, but you can learn to live with it. She once said, "Love is not when you are together. Love is when you have no regrets, even when you are not together." I only realized it now. I have no regrets. Not for her, not for myself, not for what I had to go through. Because every winter ends with someone being the first to meet spring. And if it was her, then it was probably meant to be. Sometimes I put one cup on the table, the other across from it. I pour coffee, silently look at the empty chair, and say quietly, "Thank you for everything, for the truth, for the pain, for the light." And somewhere inside, where words cannot be heard, I feel a short answer. "I knew you would learn." I look up, and it's daylight. And the world, after her, is still worth living. The 3rd year is passing. I no longer count the days. And I don't even feel when winter turns into spring. It's just that one morning the window smells different. I drink coffee, open my laptop, read the news, and there are other faces, other scandals, other heroes. The world is spinning again, as if nothing had happened. Sometimes it seems like it's all just a long dream. But then I look at the queen on the shelf, and I remember. It stands alone. Not in a set, not among the other pieces. Alone. Like me. Sometimes I think that's the whole point of the game. To survive after the board has been cleared of all the pieces. I don't know where she is now. Maybe far away. Maybe very close. Somewhere a few doors down, with a new name, a new life. Sometimes I think I'd like to meet her by chance. In a coffee line, on the subway, in a bookstore. No plan, no drama. Just look at her and say with your eyes, I get it. But perhaps true understanding does not require meetings. Life has become quiet. I have learned to appreciate this silence. It does not oppress. It holds.
It has answers that cannot be put into words. I sometimes think that every betrayal is not the end of love, but its last attempt to change us. We have both changed. She has become a part of history that is quoted, and I am a person who has finally learned to live not for someone else, but for myself. When the sun touches the water in the evening, I see her face in that reflection. Not like it used to be. Not as a memory, but as part of the world. I look and think, maybe this is what forgiveness looks like, when it doesn't hurt, when you don't wait, when you just accept that it was so. I'm not trying to forget. Forgetting is a form of escape, and I'm not running away anymore. I'm just living on, without expectations, without regrets, with the same truth she left me. Sometimes at night, when the window is half open, the wind brings the smell of vanilla. The same as then. I smile, because now it is not a symbol of betrayal. It is a reminder that even after the worst, we are still capable of feeling something warm. Perhaps this is what love is all about, leaving a scent in someone's memory that years later will become not pain, but peace. If she ever reads these lines, let her know. I'm not angry. I'm not waiting. And I haven't forgotten. I'm just grateful. Because she taught me what neither books nor life can teach: how to accept loss without fear, how to live after an explosion, how to remain human when everything around me is asking me to turn to stone. Silence is not the absence of sound. Silence is when nothing inside finally hurts. And now, as I finish these words, it's getting light outside the window. A new day, a new breath of air, a new coffee, and a world that's no longer scary.